Viewers, the Indian Army has issued a fresh, detailed policy on the use of social media and messaging applications by its personnel. Now, the aim is simple: allow controlled access, prevent security breaches. Here is what the policy says. Platform by platform, for Instagram and similar apps, Army personnel are allowed viewing and monitoring only. No comments, no opinions, no engagement of any kind. Now, for WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal and Skype, only unclassified general information can be shared. Communication is permitted only with known contacts. The responsibility of verifying the recipient lies solely with the users. Now, for YouTube, X, Quora and Instagram, only passive use is permitted. Now, the personnel may consume information. Uploading content, posting messages or even sharing views is strictly prohibited. For LinkedIn, use is limited only to uploading a resume and maybe searching for potential employers or employees. No active social networking. The message from the Army is clear here: digital access with discipline, awareness without exposure, connectivity without compromise, and this policy seeks to balance modern communication needs with national security imperatives. I'm being joined by my colleague Shreya Dhondiyal on the broadcast here. Shreya, the message from the Army is clear: use digital platforms with discipline. But what was the policy earlier and what all will now get changed?
2019, Shubhangi, the Army was very strict about how its personnel use social media platforms. In fact, there was a complete ban on any Army personnel, whether it was a soldier or an officer, to be on any social media platform. Then, over a period of times, when the armed forces realized the reality of our times, there was a relaxation. In 2020, there was a relaxation as far as Facebook and Instagram is concerned, but it was very quickly reversed as well. After there were some leaks, etc., honey trapping had become a big issue as well. Now, essentially, what the Indian Army, so over a period of time in the last 5 years, the armed forces have regularly issued guidelines and made changes to their social media policy. The big change that has come now is that the armed forces, the Army specifically, is reversing its 2020 order and is allowing its personnel to be on Instagram, but with riders. And the rider is something that you have already spelled out, that you can be a passive presence on Instagram, which means you can be there, you can view what is happening, but you certainly cannot participate. You cannot like, you cannot comment, you cannot upload, you cannot engage. Essentially, let me give you the larger picture. The larger picture, Shubhangi, is this. The armed forces, whether it's the Army, Navy or Air Force, are completely aware of the fact that their personnel are on social media, including on Instagram, with changed names. Now, if the armed forces are already aware of this reality, what they are trying to do is saying, okay, we are allowing you presence on Instagram, but these are the guidelines, and you need to follow these guidelines and these rules very strictly. So essentially, they are allowing the access, but they are setting the rules as well.
Thank you so much, Shreya, for joining us with all those details here. Of course, I have my colleague Rishabh also joining us on the broadcast here to give us more details here. Rishabh, the Army has issued a fresh and detailed policy, new directive for armed forces, and of course the message is clear here that be disciplined on the social media platforms. As Shreya was mentioning now, that the armed forces can be on social media platform, but they can't make their view on the social media platform. They can be an observer, but of course they can't be commenting or even replying on social media platform. But the main question is, what triggered this entire fresh and detailed policy and this new directive when it comes to the armed forces at the social media platforms?
Well, Shubhangi, there are three things to it. First, this is an amendment to the 2020 social media policy of Indian Army. And in this new amendment, what is allowed for the officials and other ranks of Indian Army? You can be on social media, but you cannot be posting photos. Remember, the early directive said that any uniformed photo cannot be posted on social media. Anyone who is in uniform cannot post the picture on social media. Now it says that you can be on social media, but you cannot be posting photos, or you cannot be putting out sensitive, documents or sensitive images or sensitive locations on the social media. You cannot engage with people. When it comes to, chat platforms like WhatsApp or Instagram, or for that matter, Skype, you are authorized to put out unclassified information, but only to people you know personally. There have been instances in past where social media has been used by adversaries to, in a way, trap Indian soldiers, or trying to trap Indian soldiers as well. There have been multiple such cases as well that we have seen in past few months. So these narratives basically authorize the people, but at the same time advises the army personnel to ensure that you are on social media, but with maturity. Also, because one needs to be aware of what's happening around. Social media is an indispensable part of everyone's life. The new cadets who are coming in, and for example, last month, Army Chief was also talking about how smartphones have become an indispensable part of anyone's life, and one cannot let go of. Even Indian Army officials who are tech savvy cannot let go of the smartphones, but to use it with maturity, with discipline, is something that Indian Army expects from its officials, and that's the reason this new guidelines have come in, where yes, you can be on social media. Many would have already been on social media with pseudonyms or their, spouse's account or something of that sort. But now legally they can be on social media, but they need to be very mindful of how to use social media.
Right, thank you so much, Rishabh, for joining us with all those details here. So, viewers, to sum it all up, basically, the army personnel, the armed forces can use the social media, but it, of course, come with riders. Now, Army Chief talked about the use of smartphones and social media a few weeks ago at the Chanakya dialogue. Listen in to the statement which came at that point in time by the Army Chief.
क्या स्मार्टफोन आज की जरूरत है? मेरे ख्याल से आज की निहायत जरूरत है, लेकिन ये आपको पता होना चाहिए कि कब आप उसको रखना है, कब नहीं रखना है। दूसरी चीज, सोशल मीडिया में क्या डालना है, नहीं डालना है। एक चीज होती है रिएक्ट, होता है रिस्पॉन्ड। रिएक्ट का ये मतलब है कि आप तुरंत ही उसका त्वरित उत्तर देना चाहते हैं। रिस्पॉन्ड ये मतलब है उसको सोचिए, गंभीरता से विश्लेषण कीजिए और उसके बाद उसका जवाब दीजिए। तो चूंकि हम नहीं चाहते हैं कि इसमें हमारे फौजी भाई पड़ें, तो हमने इसको बोला है कि हम सिर्फ आपको ट्विटर इस्तेमाल करने देंगे देखने के लिए। आप उसमें जवाब अभी मत दीजिए, जब आप रिटायर हो जाएंगे उसके बाद जवाब दीजिए। तो देखने को आप देख सकते हैं, इसमें कोई किसी प्रकार की परेशानी नहीं है।